day so far. The theme of our conversation today is really going to be centered around the statement that we see on the screen here. So building your EVP will lay the foundations, but activating your EVP is what's going to lead to employer brand success. And across the session today, we're going to be looking at providing you some tips of how to get those foundations right when building your employer value proposition, and then actually how to successfully activate your EVP aligned to some clear goals. But first off, to introduce myself, so I head up new client strategy for Symphony Talent in Europe, and I've been working in the employer branding space for the past 12 years. For those of you less familiar with Symphony Talent, we are a global agency that transforms employer brands and builds technology that fuels them. We've been working with clients all over the world, including the lovely Mars. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Kirsten to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, welcome from my side as well. I'm Kirsten Bethmann. I'm Global Employer Reputation Manager at Mars. And in my role, I'm responsible for rolling out our employer value proposition and our creative platform across the world. And for those who might not be familiar with Mars, you might know our consumer brands. So probably you have eaten a Snickers bar or Mars or some M&Ms before, but Mars is actually much more than just the chocolate brands you might be aware of. We have some confectionery brands, gum and mints. We have a huge pet care business, so consumer brands like Whiskas, Pedigree or Sheba, but also operate, for example, in the veterinary service space where we own a lot of vet clinics across the world. And there's much more to Mars. We have more than 125,000 associates across the world and operate in more than 80 countries. So you can imagine the scope for employer branding is quite broad here.
Perfect. Thank you, Kirsten. So let's start with building those right foundations of a solid EVP. And in our view, there are 4 key dimensions that are going to really help you on that journey to building a really solid employer value proposition. And the first of those is credible. So actually, what is it that you can say that's really credible to your organization when you want to kind of go out to market and start expressing the employer branding messages? And for us, when we think about sort of building the employer value proposition, the research that goes into it to understand really what's credible to you as an organization will come from your internal colleagues across the business. The next part is relevant. So if we've understood what's credible to your internal talent, actually what is it that external talent really want to hear? And what is it that's going to resonate with them? If we can look to find that sweet spot between what's credible to your internal organization and what we know external talent want to hear, that's where we really understand, okay, the key messages that we need to be going out with to market. Linked to that though is the aspiration. So actually, what is it that you're looking to bring talent in to do today, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years? Where is that journey that your business is going on? And we need to be communicating that in a really clear way to talent. And often that insight will come from the senior leaders of your organization. And then the final part is differentiating. And this is a really important one. So we're not just looking to differentiate you against your consumer competitors out there in the market, but actually who are you competing with for talent? They may be 2 very, very different buckets of audiences, but actually what is it we can talk about that others can't? What's that sweet spot that we can talk about that's really going to differentiate you from others? And often that will come from things like competitor audits. So just a couple of things from the agency perspective when it comes to sort of really building those solid foundations. Think about the research phase that kind of goes into building the EVP. Do we have the right talent involved when it comes to building the research? You know, we've heard from some of the presentations today around how we want to start taking those messages and then targeting different talent groups. Well, if we've done our research right and we've actually spoken to those different talent groups, we've then got the ability to sort of start flexing our EVP messaging to those different talent groups. And very much linked to that is the creative platform. So actually, does the creative platform have enough stretch to do all the different things you might want to do when it comes to activation? So whether that's an internal campaign, whether that's a campus campaign or a technology campaign, does the brand have enough flex to enable you to do that? And then when it comes to actually building the EVP, do you have those right senior stakeholders involved from the very get-go? So actually think about who is going to be signing off your employer value proposition, and are those senior stakeholders involved in the research, in the input stages? We've found that this makes for a much, much smoother process down that line when it comes to sign-off, and linked to that, the wider business stakeholders. And again, this has come up on some of the conversations today, but marketing, corporate comms, you know, we know that the employer brand and the corporate brand are so linked. Let's make sure we're having the right conversations up front with the right individuals. And then the final part from the agency perspective, validate. You know, so does the EVP and the creative platform satisfy those 4 dimensions? And have we done that validation with internal talent, but also the talent that we are looking to bring in? Kirsten, client perspective.
Yes, so from a client perspective, of course, I agree with the points that Craig mentioned, but also I would recommend, if you're responsible from a global perspective, get to know your markets. So know basically what is being done in the employer branding space, what do your markets need, where do you operate, what are the challenges that they are facing, what has been working very well in the past, what can you learn from, so really do your due diligence. Then you should really focus on the what's in it for me factor. So when you identify your stakeholders, why should they care? Why should they collaborate with you? And really find out what's the value for them in supporting you, and also in just like having an employer brand. So focus on what's in it for me. Then I would recommend to set clear roles and responsibilities. So on the one hand, be aware what you are expected to do. What does the business or your senior leaders expect you to deliver? But also you could never do this on your own. So it's not a one-person show. Employer branding is much more than that. So you should also know, what do you expect from your stakeholders? What do you expect from the business? And set clear targets for everyone. And the last piece is something very close to my heart, actually. It's about creating a sense of belonging. In many cases, you have people in the market who are just one person, or it's just 20% of their role to do employer branding. And of course, you want that to be more, but still make sure they feel part of your team. You create a team spirit, you create fun and a sense of belonging, so that you can operate together on a global level. So, with all that, when it comes to activating your EVP, you're set up for success. So what have we done at Mars? In 2019, in March, we actually launched our new corporate purpose, and with that, a new corporate brand. And we had been doing employer branding before that, but it meant for us to relaunch our EVP globally and to relaunch our creative platform. So this is what we did. And in line with that, we actually implemented a 2025 vision and strategy. We looked, what do we need to achieve by 2025 to support the business growth, to support the business success. And we set a clear vision for that. And within that, we have identified 4 main pillars that we are focusing on. And we basically had a digital first approach that we focus on specific social and digital channels. And in those, we wanted to win and be very successful. Then secondly, we looked at brilliant brand execution. We wanted to make sure that the brand is rolled out consistently across the world, that looks the same everywhere, that we have the same messaging everywhere. So this was a very important part. Then we looked at strong advocacy, and this includes senior leaders, this includes every associate in the line, this includes your employer brand leads, so that everyone is an advocate of your brand and understands it. And then the 4th element was really about activating it everywhere. So look at every part of the business, at every region, every country, to make sure this is consistent. So this was our strategy that we used. But first things first, when you launch your employer brand, you need to engage the business first before rolling it out externally, and that's what we did. So we basically had 2 phases. First, we focused on our brand people across the world, on recruiters and basically the wider HR business. And we had different initiatives to make sure that they are in line and supportive of what we are all doing. We put in place a governance process to build brand equity, so to make sure the brand is used consistently, and had some tools in place to make this happen. We offered a lot of training, so a brand playbook, global webinars and training sessions, in on-demand training that is still live for anyone who joins the business new, to really understand what's the EVP, what's the strategy, what's the creative platform. As I mentioned, community is something very important. So we built a community of about 40 people, everyone in the markets doing employer branding, and held like regular sessions where we meet and discuss ways of working, best practices, and so on. In collaboration with Symphony Talent, we did some spotlight sessions to train and really build expertise in the market. So we trained them how to do a good video, for example, how to use specific social channels. Quite nice sessions where they could really learn and educate themselves. And lastly, we also focused on social sharing, that everyone was able to share our brand externally. And then the second focus area was the wider business. So it basically includes, for example, corporate affairs or wider HR people. And we rolled out the employer brand internally. And in the background, you already see a film running that we showed. We created it just for internal purposes to excite our stakeholders about employer branding, to show them we're here, we're doing something. We are looking at the challenges that we are facing to attract talent into our organization. And we basically communicated in many different ways. So we had this film, we launched it on our intranet, we sent it by emails, it was running in some sites on Scala screens or in town halls it was used. But also we held some global webinars where we basically explained why is employer branding important, what's in it for me factor, how does it help recruiters to attract talent, how does it help hiring managers, how does it help senior leaders? What's the strategy around this? And then, of course, excite them about the cool new brand that we have created. And I'll let you experience the video for a bit until we explain a bit more about our journey. So, but instead of just telling our people, this is what you need to do, we also wanted to make sure that they have the right tools to succeed. And I'll let Craig explain what we did.
Yeah, thank you, Kirsten. So we've been on that journey with Mars, and we've looked to sort of support them developing the toolkits of materials that all of the markets would have needed to actually activate the brand externally. So everything from the brand book and guidance documents themselves through to things like emails and banners and posters. And all of that great content is actually hosted on the Mars Employer Reputation Portal. That's been redesigned, aligned to the new employer brand visual identity, and that's actually powered by Papier-Fly, who I know is speaking today. But that allows the Mars employer brand leaders to actually self-serve and design those templates as and when they need to. So again, really kind of thinking about how we train those individuals to sort of, use those templates themselves.
So in the end, when it came to really activating externally, our teams had the right tools in place to really be successful. So, but then you might think, oh, Mars has all those great brands. If you own Snickers, then it's easy to do employer branding. But actually, that's not the case. Just a reminder, employer branding is not consumer marketing. So when we ask people, who is Mars as an employer, this is actually what we get. Some people mention chocolate, candy bars. Some even say, oh, it's a family-owned business, so that's nice that we hear that. But the main message we hear is not sure. So people are not sure who Mars is. So you can see we also have a long way ahead of us to build our employer brand. And one thing we identified when we built our EVP is that our people are the most important asset. Our people is one of the main reasons why people come to Mars, why they stay at Mars, why they love working here. So we knew very early that we needed to put them on stage and show our great people within our creatives.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a lot of different ways we've looked to bring associates, Mars employees to life through the activity that we've done. And actually one of the first things was the always on social and digital strategy. So the approach that we have in place here sees all of the content that gets created aligned to the 3 EVP pillars, and then that's pushed out at a global level with the goal of really raising the profile of Mars as an employer of choice. The channels that we would cover, would include everything from LinkedIn to Glassdoor to Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, through to sort of programmatic banners and Google AdWords. But you can sort of see here, the content on the screen really tries to sort of use the Mars associates to help us tell that story, because as Kirsten mentioned, we know that they are so important to kind of really sell in Mars as an employer. And then I think Mars Associates actually became an even more important tool when it came to the global graduate campaign. So we knew from our research that once students had actually met with Mars, they really started to form that connection with employees, and they were a massive part of the sell. But the brief for Mars was, for us to develop a digital-first global campaign. So actually, our thinking was, how do we really bottle that sentiment and turn it into something that actually works in this space? So the idea here was we really made the associates the star of the show, and this is really what formed the Mars Insiders campaign. The Mars Insiders campaign basically saw graduates from all over the world apply to become a Mars Insider. So if you like, social influencers who would be provided their own platform to tell us their Mars story to future graduates through the power of social media. We ran an internal campaign to recruit our Mars Insiders, and from the audition videos, we then selected 11 graduates from different backgrounds, markets, locations to really be the stars of the campaign. Each insider had an Instagram or a Weibo account set up for them, along with specialist training, insider kits that we would kind of send to them to really make sure that they were set up for success, because really the success of this campaign rested on the shoulders of 11 graduates, from around the world. But the campaign itself centered around our Mars Insiders really bringing to life, in their own words, what is it like to be a graduate at Mars, warts and all. And this was a 3-month starting point of the campaign, where our insiders really shared every moment of what it was like to work for Mars, with their follower base, whether that was through posts, Instagram stories, Instagram lives, polls, interviews, and sort of so much more. As an organization, we sort of supported the insiders with the content and the topics and the themes, as well as the promotion of those insider accounts through the Mars global social channels. And then we also developed an interactive quiz, which was housed on the Mars career website, which allows the students to actually understand which insider they may be best suited to follow based on the subjects they're studying, their career ambitions, the location that they're in. And it really just helped us to make sure that the insider accounts had a really great followership, not just of numbers, but of people that were really interested in actually what the insiders had to say. The campaign also came to life in person too, because who doesn't love to go and meet their favorite social influencer? But it really gave the graduates an opportunity to actually meet the insiders in person at career events. And here's an example from the event in Poland. But coming back to the brief, the campaign has been a real success for a number of reasons, but mainly because we've given the authority to the associates to be their true selves. In this campaign, they were not regimented in terms of what they could or couldn't talk about. There was no censorship of content. We gave the responsibility to the associates to kind of, to have it on their shoulders to work out themselves really what was appropriate to share. But it has massively paid off to kind of really get that connection, from our students with our current Mars graduates.
It was really a very cool campaign, which we were very proud of. But of course, graduates, it's not the only target group we are looking at. So we also have a lot to offer for experienced hires. So we also did quite a lot in that space. So for example, we collaborated with sales, we collaborated with R&D, with digital and some other functions to understand what are the core messages for this specific target group. So we have developed talent propositions, we work with research in the background, talk to associates to understand this, to really identify core messages, and also how we might have to tweak our creative platform to make it more attractive for this target group. But of course, all under the umbrella of our employer brand and of our EVP. And then, of course, we've done a lot more that we are not able to talk about today. But for example, we have a film about working at Mars. We launched several different social campaigns. We did a photo shoot, and we also launched a brand new careers website that has a great CRM in the background. So that was quite nice. But let's come back to our people. And can you go to the next slide, Craig?
Power of technology is freezing us there, but yep.
But let's come back to our people. I told you it's important to create a sense of belonging and a community. So what we did at Mars is, for example, we launched our first ever Global Employer Reputation Conference. We met in China with some of our main leaders in the employer reputation space. We had external speakers there. We had shared best practices from the markets, collaborated on the 2025 vision and strategy. And as you might see, we had a lot of fun seeing each other in person, as we are usually only on virtual calls together. We did a big test and learn initiatives where we asked the markets to hand in great ideas about bold and brave initiatives that we could do, and really got quite exciting ideas back from the markets, and actually brought one idea to life with one market together, which was very nice. And then we also did a big thank you campaign to just thank them for this big rollout and all the initiatives that they did to support us. And I'll let Craig speak what we did.
Absolutely, yeah, and it kind of all circles back really. So at the start, Kirsten was talking about how, you know, when we're launching the employer brand, we need to be engaging with internal talent inside the business, and for us, this was really where it started to come 360. This was very much about kind of giving back to that community who had helped us to activate the employer brand. The brief was to sort of develop a campaign that would thank the employer reputation leaders for their efforts in 2019 and really continue to motivate them in 2020. So we looked to develop a wrap-up video that brought to life all of the achievements the team had completed in 2019, something really that everyone could be proud of, and housed the video itself in this sort of physical thank you card. And actually that was a really great way to cut through the digital noise that we all have, you know, over email. Alongside the card itself, we actually sent the team a content capturing kit for 2020. So some really small tools that they could use with their phones just to help them in their roles to actually start capturing some employer brand content that would be sort of contributing to the global strategy. And actually the appreciation was amazing. The amount of comments and feedback that Kirsten had from the global team was just phenomenal. And actually we wanted to just end with a video really that one of the employer reputation leaders actually shared herself on her social channels. So since launch, you know, we've had some really great success, and here's just a snapshot actually of some of those results. But 95% of the global markets have activated the global employer brand, which is fantastic to see. And as Kirsten sort of mentioned, one of our key goals was around winning at social. And one of the metrics that we were looking at for that was actually the number of clicks that we were getting from social and digital through to our own website and through to the space. So we've seen a 146% increase in those clicks, which obviously is a massive effort around, you know, the content that's now being pushed out there, aligned to the new EVP. And we've seen a 181% increase in those applied clicks too, from before launch and to after. And then another just highlight has really been the industry awards that the team have, you know, picked up along the way. So for graduate campaign, use of social, and print.
So what do we want you to take away from our session today? There are basically four main things. The one thing really is invest in your EVP, because it really does pay off over time. You would benefit from it when you roll out and consistently afterwards. Secondly, set clear goals. So make sure you know what you want to achieve and you communicate that strongly. The third is really building credibility. So make sure basically your business knows it's a strategic priority, because you're not doing this for yourself, you're doing this for the business and for the business growth. Then also don't underestimate stakeholder management. It's really key to success. You need to involve your stakeholders, inform them, make them aware what you're doing and excite them. And then do something different, do something brave, try to be different and differentiate from others.